AHRC TV's weekly roundup. In this week's program, erratic behaviour of Indian legislators exposed. Right Livelihood Award laureates decry golden rice as false miracle. Bangladesh opposition leader disappeared after being picked up by officers. Indian tribal leader pressured to give up struggle against eviction. Welcome to AHRC TV's weekly roundup. I'm Josephina Bergston. This week's program begins in India. AHRC TV turns its attention to the bizarre behaviour displayed in legislative assemblies in some states in India. Bablu Loitongbam is a human rights defender working in the Indian state of Manipur. The Human Rights Alert, the organisation for which Bablu works, is engaged in documenting cases of extrajudicial executions in Manipur and lobbying to end the enforcement of the draconian Armed Forces Special Powers Act. Recently, local media interviewed Bablu regarding police beating up students who had been demanding the implementation of an inner line permit system in Manipur. The inner line permit system is a system of regulating outsiders entering indigenous peoples' territory. This system is in vogue in the neighbouring state of Nagaland, Mizoram, and Arunachal Pradesh. Manipuri indigenous populations are especially alarmed by the possibility of outsiders swamping their land once the Trans-Asian Railway becomes operational. During the interview, Bablu observed that it is the responsibility of the Manipur State Legislative Assembly to preempt this by coming out with a white paper on the issue. However, as the legislature has abdicated its responsibility, students are protesting in the streets, and they are in turn being beaten up for voicing concern for their future. This, Bablu argued, is an act of cowardice on the part of the legislators. Subsequently, the Manipur State Legislative Assembly initiated a privileged motion against Bablu, arguing that the activist's statement had brought shame to the Legislative House and has subsequently recommended his arrest. Now over to the Legislative Assembly of the southern Indian state of Kerala. This is how its members have behaved in order to prevent the state finance minister from presenting the budget, accusing him of having engaged in corruption. With food safety being the theme for this year's World Health Day, which falls on April 7, 37 laureates of the Right Livelihood Award from across the world have endorsed a declaration on the future of nutrition, denouncing golden rice and other genetically modified crops as false miracles. Golden rice is genetically engineered rice developed by the agro-industry to contain more vitamin A. Its proponents have hyped it as a high-tech, quick-fix solution to vitamin A deficiencies in developing countries. Last month, Right Livelihood Award laureate Vandana Shiva and her organization Navdanya, along with the coalition of women's groups in India, began to call for signatures to a declaration on the future of nutrition. The coalition asserts that claims of international corporations alleging the superiority of genetically engineered crops, like golden rice and GM bananas, are false and calls on women around the world to instead promote a sustainable agroecology system that supports crop diversity, seed sovereignty, soil protection, subsistence for farmers, and health of the people. The declaration asks the world to reject the false promises of golden rice. It states the following: as a source of nutrition for the global south, golden rice has no real benefits, But considering the precedent set by soy, corn, canola and cotton, introducing golden rice as a way for large companies to gain control over entire food cultures based on rice makes perfect sense. Here is Vandana Shiva in excerpts from a video released on this issue.
Food is supposed to nourish us. It's supposed to give us nutrition. It's supposed to give us health. And we've designed an industrial model of farming that is efficient only in one thing: taking nutrients out of food and putting toxics in their place. And then we've designed chemical monocultures that shrink the nutrition per acre and claim to be solving the problem of hunger. Biodiversity is where nutrition grows. The more biodiversity intense our farming systems, the more health per acre, the more nutrition per acre we produce. The industrial monocultures are not producing nutrition, and in fact they've even stopped producing food. They're commodities that are going for biofuel and animal feed. And then the entire driving force for industrial agriculture is applying war chemicals to farming. Not only taking away diversity, but taking away nutrition from the soil. And having created this nutrition disaster, the same industry is now floating false miracles like golden rice to solve the problem of vitamin A. Golden rice is 350% less efficient than the biodiversity women bring. There is no dearth of nutrition in a world of biodiversity. The dearth is in a world of monocultures. And genetic engineering cannot make up that deficit. Even if they manage to get GMO golden rice through, it'll only be a tiny percentage of the daily vitamin A requirement. But in the meantime, corporations will have got control on rice. There's 70 patents locking golden rice. And the person who is claimed to be the founder, on the one hand talks philanthropy, but then says, what's wrong if I have partnerships with the Syngentas? Don't they have a right to make money through patenting and intellectual property?
Another Right Livelihood Award laureate, Grain, as part of Stop Golden Rice Alliance, issued a release along similar lines last month. Grain has since also endorsed Vandana Shiva's declaration, emphasizing that golden rice is not the answer to vitamin deficiencies in developing countries. The Stop Golden Rice Alliance has stated, vitamin A deficiency, like other problems of malnutrition and hunger, is not caused by the lack of vitamin A in food, but by people's inability to access a balanced diet. Industrial monocultures farming systems have led to unbalanced patterns of food production around the world. Variety and diversifying food is the key to solving vitamin deficiency. The development of golden rice merely serves the biotech industry in its efforts to win wider approval for GM food. It's a tool to promote GMOs that would pave the way towards control of food and agriculture by agrobiotech corporations. For more on this, here is Kartini Saman from Grain's office in Jakarta, Indonesia.
This is just a way of more increased monoculture in the crops itself, and losing the biodiversity of the source of different kind of vitamin A source available in nature and produced by small-scale farmers. And so by producing GM crops, also farmers lose their independence on what kind of seeds they want to use, how they want to use it. So it's really like increasing dependency of farmers to seeds industry. The variety of our food itself has been very much diminished throughout, because of the promotion of this industrial agriculture that reduced the different type of food that available. It's basically a long process of losing our biodiversity and source of different kind of food that is available for people to access. The GM producer at the beginning also never intended that for food crops. That's what the first argument. And then another thing is that there's a lot of false, or we call it a myth of GM that was put out there. This is never in relations to increase productivity, for example. GM cannot be replicated, GM seeds cannot be replicated by the farmers itself. I mean, they have to buy the seeds, they increase their input expenses, and they cannot, it links to patent rights and everything. So the farmers are forced to become very dependent to the seed industry.
Enforced disappearance is on the rise in Bangladesh. High-profile politicians and activists of the opposition parties are being targeted. On March 10, Bangladeshi law enforcement agencies picked up a senior opposition leader in Bangladesh from a house in Uttara, Dhaka. Since then, the man remains disappeared. The victim is identified as Salah Uddin Ahmed, a former member of parliament and former state minister of the country. At the time of his disappearance, he was assigned as the main spokesperson and joint secretary general of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party. Salah Uddin Ahmed is the third former parliamentarian in Bangladesh who have been disappeared. Former members of parliament Ilyas Ali and Saiful Islam Hiro were disappeared in 2011 and 2013, respectively. Eyewitnesses have said that a Rapid Action Battalion vehicle and a white-colored microbus arrived at the house at around 10 p.m. 2 more police vans were also parked at the 2 ends of the same road at the time. Around 10 men with close-cropped hair, wearing jeans and t-shirts, introduced themselves as officers of the detective branch of the Dhaka Metropolitan Police. They went to the flat occupied by Salah Uddin Ahmed. He was subsequently brought out, blindfolded and handcuffed. Salah Uddin Ahmed's wife, Hasina Ahmed, who is also a former member of parliament, sought intervention from Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in rescuing and returning Ahmed unharmed to the family. She has also filed a habeas corpus writ petition to the High Court bench. The case was partially heard on March 16. The next hearing is scheduled for April 8. Bangladesh's Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has, in response, blamed her political counterpart and former Prime Minister Khalida Zia for the disappearance of Salah Uddin Ahmed. Finally, we return to India, where a tribal leader in one of India's tiger reserves is fearing for his safety after a wildlife official urged his own community to beat him up and drive him out for defending their right to remain on their land. Survival International, a Right Livelihood Award laureate that campaigns for the rights of tribal people around the world, has been highlighting the case. Telenga Hassa, a Munda man from Jamunagar community inside what is now Similipal Tiger Reserve in the Indian state of Odisha, has been leading his village struggle against moves to evict them in the name of tiger conservation. During a village meeting in January, an honorary wildlife warden reportedly urged Telenga's fellow villagers to attack him or drive him out of the reserve if he didn't agree to their relocation. Telenga told Survival International that during previous meetings, the same warden had shouted abuse at him and his tribe and ripped up a statement detailing their opposition to the evictions. According to Indian and international law, tribal people's free, prior, and informed consent is required before moving them off their ancestral homelands. But villagers at Jamunagar have faced years of harassment. Across India, tribal people are being illegally and forcibly evicted from their ancestral homelands in the name of tiger conservation. Telenga has submitted a complaint to the district police detailing the verbal abuse, threats, and incitement to attack. And Survival International has made 2 submissions to the Odisha Human Rights Commission, but has yet to receive a reply. Survival International argues that tribal people are in fact the best conservationists. They have managed their land sustainably for many generations. Forcing them off their land is a violation of human rights and does nothing to save the tiger. That is all for this weekly roundup. For more on these and other issues, please visit www.humanrights.asia. Thank you for watching and see you next week.